Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams. And today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment.
In this episode of the Power of Design podcast, Jack talked to his friend Melanie Guinn Henderson. With award-winning expertise in global strategy and execution, Mel is a trusted advisor with enterprises including corporate, nonprofit, and government. Starting her career in Milan, Italy, working with luxury brands, Mel has worked in dozens of industries throughout her career. She successfully advises top communication officers and global business executives in all areas of market research, strategy, and content. During our conversation, we talked about her passion for languages, working and living in Europe, and the importance of a brand strategy in the business world.
Melanie, welcome to the Power of Design podcast.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you?
Excellent.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a
We've
long
known
time.
each other for a long time.
I know. Probably, I will say 10 years. No, more. 12 years.
More, I think.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's crazy. So tell me about your day today. What do you do today?
Oh, that's actually a very good question. This has been quite a week for me. In my former firm, we tried to do a lot of pro bono work and a lot of events and donate into certain things. And yesterday, I was invited to the Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden Hat Luncheon.
Nice.
Which is a great, great organization. So my Wednesday started out like that. And then this morning, I had a lot of work catch up to do, of course. What else can I say this morning? Why am I forgetting my day? I don't have a lot of short-term memory. My long-term memory is so grand.
Yeah, I'm the same. My wife tells me the same.
Well, what did I have for breakfast this morning? Did I have breakfast this morning?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. All right, so I know we are, connected not only because, I think we had a really good friendship for a long time. I really enjoy when we talk, but we're also in the branding world. I know I visited you years ago at your agency doing amazing brand work, great conversations and expertise that you always talk about. So I love to start just learning about your journey, where did you grow up? Kind of some stories of how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a great question because I actually grew up in the mountains of North Carolina. Very beautiful, lots of tourism.
Nice.
But not a lot of job opportunity in terms of, there's a lot in education, healthcare, things like that. And when I was 12, I had this incredible social studies teacher who had us do this project on Christmas in different countries. And when all the presentations came through, I couldn't even tell you the one I did.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to experience other cultures. It was just very fascinating to me. So my journey at that point began very strongly through high school. So I studied French as a language. I'm very, very much into linguistics. And then I decided to go to George Washington University because they have a specific program to study and work abroad, pretty much, either in the public or the private sector. And I would have loved the public sector. The Brookings Institute, if you're familiar, offered me a job out of college, but it's a prestigious job. It's not a well-paying job.
Yeah.
So I couldn't afford to take that job.
Yes.
So eventually I landed in Paris for a summer with Sotheby's. The economy was not great when I graduated, so I was kind of taking anything and everything. I was doing a lot of odd jobs and, here and there, so it was very hard, not to find something in my career path. But in Sotheby's, I stumbled on this opportunity where they basically float you. So you can experience like, okay, would I like to be eventually an expert? Would I like to be eventually, there's so many positions that you can do in the auction world.
Yep.
And the one that I really gravitated to was getting the items in and marketing them. And what I mean by that is developing the stories, taking the photography. Why is the importance there? Rather than just saying, okay, this is a nice painting.
Right.
It was really bringing in, and there's a lot of Monets and Manets, but there's also a lot of obscure things that people don't know about. So I became just very immersed in that world. We developed the catalogs. We had them professionally printed in Europe, and we would mail them out to prospective clientele who wanted to, so we had to kind of find the people who followed those types of antiques or jewelry or things. So there was audience segmentation even then, old school mailing list if you want, but it was, we do that all the time now. And then, a few things happened, not a great situation, because I eventually transferred to the Milan house of Sotheby's, and there was a tremendous scandal in the London house. Yes, in the London house of Sotheby's. I was not important enough to be involved in the scandal. I'm just this young 20-something ingenue, you know. But the repercussions were that they shut down a lot of the small houses for an indefinite amount of time.
Wow.
So here I am. I've gone from learning French fluently to learning Italian fluently. Now I'm without a job. I've negotiated this apartment, which is nothing like negotiating an apartment in the US. Nothing. But luckily for me, I had met an older collectionist who was from Milan, and she just became like an Italian mother to me, and she began to invite me to come by her antique store every afternoon and have like a high tea, or not high tea at 4 or a hot toddy in the winter, because Milan is cold. And we, I would help her with her English, and we just became very, very fond of each other. So the day that I found out that the office was closing, I go to her, I'm in tears. I barely have enough money for a one-way ticket back because, when you're living abroad, you're not buying round trip tickets. And she said, I think I know something that you can do. And as it turned out, she knew that I liked the catalogs and developing the histories, writing the content, directing the photo shoots, all of that. So it was very coincidental that her husband, one of his best friends, owned a very small boutique luxury branding firm in Milano. So I went to meet with him. I was almost hired on the spot because they needed a mother tongue English. Naming and developing products. It's very important when you're going into these markets that it's appropriate, that people don't react badly to it.
Sure.
But those were amazing days because, working in luxury branding in Milano, Italy, you can imagine.
That's amazing.
It was, I was, what can I say, mid-20s. Over there, and I've always been very independent and had started to really start making friends and socialize into the Italian part of Milano, which, it's hard to meet a negative Italian.
Sure.
In most cases. They're out there.
How was the culture difference? Because, of course, there are differences. And how did you approach the differences? What did you learn? What were things that you said, oh, this is kind of nice, or things that you didn't like? And how did you immerse yourself in that new culture?
That is a great question because, like a lot of Americans, well, I will say I had gone to school at George Washington University and some work at Georgetown. And so I had met a lot of Northern Italians. And, we think of Italians as being, they only eat spaghetti. They kind of have this soprano kind of, whatever personality. But in the North, it's so completely different. Milano was occupied by Austria during the Second World War. So their signature meal is actually a cotoletta, which is a Wiener Schnitzel. And the people tend to be taller, fairer. But the number one thing, and I enjoyed this very much, is that they had a very strong work ethic. And that's to say that when there was a deadline, we went to get it.
Yeah.
Because, when you move a little further in Italy, like down, where the sun is warm and people, I'm going to take a 2-hour lunch and go get some sun.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Milan is cold and cold a lot of the year. So that suited me very well, coming from an American mindset of, let's finish the project, let's get the contract started, etc.
Nice. That's fun.
So yeah, a big change. I always tell people, Milan is not a tourist city.
Yeah.
But it's one of the fashion capitals of the world,
right?
Naturally, and it's known for that. But the weather's not incredible there. But at the same time, you can 3.5 hours be in the Riviera, 3 hours go skiing.
Yeah.
And, it's a city where everybody just kind of leaves at noon on Friday and enjoys the weekend. So I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
What did you think about American culture when you were there, for some years that you maybe didn't see when you were here?
Oh, I love this question. So I didn't study Italian. And when I got there, my French was great. So I had to figure out how I was going to learn Italian quickly. Yeah. And my job at first, I didn't need to speak Italian. They were looking to me to speak English.
Yeah.
But eventually I knew I had to learn it. So I started watching in the evenings Baywatch, Friends, shows that were on in the U.S. that I had never seen.
Yes.
But what a lot of people don't know is that Italians are great dubbers, which means that you can watch the show and the lips aren't running behind the, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And since they were American shows, I could understand the context of what was going on. And me with my little nerdy notebook, I just would write down, and I've got a gift for languages. I don't know where I got it, but I learned Italian very, very quickly.
Nice.
But yeah, the impressions that Italians had of America were very interesting to always discuss. We're, as we come mostly from a more provincial Anglo-Saxon heritage here. Yeah. We must always be on time. Right. Italians are never on time. If you show up on time, don't do that. Show up 15 minutes late, especially if it's a dinner party. She may still be getting dressed, you know. So many differences, but I think that's why I've loved every place that I've lived or visited, because that's, if everybody lived the same in every country, it would be so boring.
Oh, sure.
I can't even imagine a world like that. I think that's why I don't like sci-fi movies. Yeah. Because everybody kind of becomes like the same universe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm into like the real, where a character comes from and, the culture and the history that shaped all of that.
Yeah. Nice. What was the next step for you then?
So I was there, and I have to admit, I wasn't necessarily planning on coming back. I never really knew if I was going to have a family. I was just very, very, very career focused. However, in Italy at that time, they weren't really embracing email. They're very, they're still, very paper driven, and I'm paper driven. I like to take a lot of notes and printouts and everything like that. But I started feeling like there might be a chance that if I were to have to come back here for some reason, that I would not have certain skills. Yeah. Excel spreadsheets,
Sure.
or little things like that.
Yeah.
They just weren't doing that. They're old school. Everything's written in hand, and I still love that though. But the other thing that occurred is that I'm the first grandchild in my family, and I grew up very, very close to my granddad on my maternal side, and he had type 1 diabetes. And there was just a point where I thought, I probably should get back and be close to him.
Yeah.
So I asked the company, I said, can you hold my contract? I can come back. And Italians are so family. They're like, yes, take your time. Take your time. The good news is I came to Charlotte because this is where he was in the mountains at the time.
Yeah.
I came to Charlotte for obviously the international opportunities, but he lived to be, I think, another 4 years. So by that time, I have become ingrained back into the, I don't know if I'm still in the 100% American mindset.
Yeah.
There's a saying that going abroad is easier than sometimes coming home. And in my case, that was very, very true. I had a lot of problems reacquainting myself with, Europeans are a little bit more accepting. The atmosphere there is, I would say, much more relaxed than here. They have certain things built ingrained as social democracies, and, certain things are provided. They're definitely not as competitive as we are.
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions about that over there. And I said, hey, it starts in America when you're like in primary school.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kids who raise their hand to answer the questions, the extroverts, are given literally better grades.
Sure.
Whereas your introverts, who could be twice more intelligent, are too shy.
Yeah.
So this I really believe causes our culture to be overly competitive.
100%.
And that's something that I enjoyed over there. I didn't feel like people were trying to get my job behind my back.
Right.
I didn't feel like people were trying to, it's just very different.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that all Americans are like that. By far, that's not the case.
Sure.
But it's the cultural differences.
Oh, yeah. In general.
Yeah.
It's like
sure.
that. I see the difference because I'm at the point where I live half of my life in Colombia and now half of my life here.
Congratulations.
So I have no idea where I'm from.
I know.
Yes.
Cheers to that.
Yes.
What do you call us? Continental people, I think, is what they used to say back in the 50s.
I like that. That sounds good. So I'm like halfway when I can go down there and I can see the good things and the bad things.
Right.
But I'm here and I can see the good things and the bad things. And
yeah, of course.
They're both 50% and 50%. You love some things, you don't love another one. But I always say that one thing that I always get when I go and spend some time there, down there we may not have the structure, organization, and let's say material abundance we have in United States. But I see people enjoy life more.
I completely understand where you're going from.
How I laugh when I go down there is incredible. And sometimes I'm here, I'm like, it's been like days and I haven't laughed like out loud.
We're very serious here.
Yes, it's very
too serious,
machine-like. And there's some other things down there that I don't like and I don't want to experience. Sure. That it's a trade-off, but still, I think that basic human element, I see it. Where they may not have all the vacations or things that we have here, possessions, but they don't need that to have fun. Everybody's having fun.
Yeah, I recently had a little thing at my home and invited a bunch of French people that I know, and we were talking about this very notion because they were talking about American consumerism. Two of them were au pairs that are over here for a year. And one is, I won't go into all the details for the sake of the podcast, but they were like, what is up with you Americans and everything you buy? Amazon deliveries.
Oh my gosh.
every day. And, they just don't behave like that in other countries. You don't. And I'm not one of those women who has like 7 closets of clothes.
Yeah.
I can't do that, because I think it's more about quality and having just some nice, for example, I'm, dressed like this today, just something casual and fun. But I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that there's so much focus on, okay, do I have the right suit for that occasion? Do I have the right cocktail dress for that occasion? Yep. Do I have this and that? Whereas people in other countries, they just have more of a way of just wearing what they have and not running out to buy a special pair of shoes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making myself clear. But
Yeah. I see that all the time because, I've been here so many years that I've gone through the other side of the pendulum, becoming too American. And now I'm at the point like, wait, why am I doing this? Why are all these Amazon boxes in my house? Why do I really need this?
I know.
But it's good to at least have the reference to now question myself and say, all right, let's now adjust. I have both experiences.
Yeah.
Let's make it the way I want it, which could be the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I find myself often saying to myself, do I need that or do I want that? Mm-hmm. The difference is very large.
Yeah.
If we just start to buy what we need, then, but if you want everything, it's just too, back to my point, like, I know women who have 8 closets of clothes. I cannot identify with that. Yeah. I would be overwhelmed. I would, but to each his own. I don't judge.
Yeah. Sure.
It's just a different thing. I know that there are women in other countries, very wealthy countries like the Arab countries and everything like that, who probably have 25 closets. Yeah. It's just a question of culture. And, like I said, I don't judge. And sometimes I can borrow things.
Sure. All right. So you move here. Tell me about your story here, because, I know when we met, you were running your branding agency, mm-hmm. and it was amazing. So tell me that story about how that came about.
Yeah. So when I moved here, I found a job as let's call it a global brand director for an Italian firm. And I was in charge of, I was the brand police. When you have the brand standards, people can't, go against the rules. So that was a perfect job for me because I was able to go to other subsidiaries in London and France and, all other kind of France was interesting because you don't tell the French anything. You're not the boss of anyone in France. They're like, oh, screw your brand standards, we'll do our own.
Yeah.
Whereas the Germans are like, we will follow and obey, So that was a really fun job. And it got me back and forth between Charlotte and Europe quite a bit when I first moved here. And then with that company, I would say I was in that company for about 6 years when I discovered that I was going to have my fraternal twin boys. And I had already had my daughter, and one baby is one thing. But having 3 children under 4 is quite another matter.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I was working many, many hours. I had a lot of responsibility. So I got the idea into my mind, why not start reaching back out to my European connections and see if I could become like a contracted consultant for them. Right. A lot of companies don't need a full-time chief marketing officer, chief strategy officer. There's so many C-suite. I can't even keep up with them now.
Yeah.
So I began to reach out to them, and because the company I was with wanted like 8 months of notice. So it was a big deal. So I began to reach out and to figure out that probably within a year, I could have had enough money to carry my own health insurance, which is a big deal, private insurance, and match my income and work with people almost exclusively abroad. Yeah. And this was a big thing back then because email allowed it, PDFs allowed it.
Right.
We could, you didn't have to call long distance with people. Email just changed all of that completely. So I had that very small, just me, solopreneurship for a couple of years. And then something really incredible happened. A really successful agency in town decided to shut its doors, and two of the creative directors knew about me, and they came to me and they said, "What do you think about forming a partnership?" And so we had a lot of back and forth, like vetting. Will we match each other? Will we work together? Right. And we just had this really good chemistry. So we started together, and within 6 months, we acquired as the agency of record all the hospitals within Atrium.
Wow.
So for people who know, this is one of the largest healthcare systems in the U.S.
Sure.
We were doing, well, I was writing their strategy. I still think back to that. And I'm, because that's where my passions lies in strategic growth and thinking about all that. And then we naturally had to build up staff. But I never wanted to get too big. So we got to about 7. And then our business model was to outsource, outsource photographers, outsource videographers, outsource, for TV commercials. We're not going to hire cameramen. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we were lean and mean, but we could provide very, very good work. And it was just a great model. And I will say that I copied a lot of that model off of the agency that I was in Milano.
Right.
Because small and mighty can be a much more powerful thing than, a big behemoth agency of record with 150 people.
Yes.
The number one thing being that you don't have to charge those excessive hourly fees.
Right.
So we were nimble and agile, and we gained a lot of popularity. It was really incredible. We got to do some consumer goods products, which I loved. And healthcare just carried us through the financial ups and downs of the 2008 and 2009. Healthcare is basically recession proof.
Sure.
So, and then something really bad happened. A new organizational person came into the healthcare system. And it wasn't anything to do with us. She just wanted to bring in her own people.
Right.
That happens a lot.
Sure. That's how it works.
And we didn't have a lot of say-so in the matter, even though the staff were like, no,
Right.
But I decided to pivot the company. And that's, I think, where you and I, our specialization started to cross a little bit without us talking to each other, because I brought in an architect and we started to do branded environments.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, tasteful environments, not giant logos everywhere, but, the brand is the culture. The brand is the whole, who we are, what we do, why does that matter? So, going in, I know you would agree, going into a company where there's giant, I don't know, Chiquita bananas everywhere.
Right.
That's not what we're looking for. We're
Sure.
looking for a bit of more subtle, how can you say, persuasive way to bring people in and make them feel good about the culture.
Yeah.
So we got some good projects off of that. And then we carried our way through a couple of other upsets. Owning your firm, you never know. You've got a lot of things on your mind to do, and being an I used to call it an entrepreneur, because you're the one worrying. You're doing the most of the worrying, right?
Yeah.
So after a lot of time, we had a beautiful studio, which you saw in Uptown Charlotte, magnificent studio, and the lease came up for renewal. And I had owned the business for 15 years with another partner. And I just thought to myself, it was going to double. The rent was going to double. And, moving a business is very expensive.
Oh, sure.
And so I drove in that morning and I thought, okay, we have parking expenses. We have 5 phone lines that nobody calls because everybody emails. We have, the best of the best. But what does it really mean in the end? Because most clients were asking me to come to them for the most part.
Yes.
Not for presentations.
Yeah.
But so I went to the team and I said, we have 6 months left. Everybody, please start finding a job. I'll help you with your resumes, go on interviews, and it was definitely a very bittersweet situation. But thank heavens I did that, because we did not renew that lease for 10 years. And 2.5 years later, COVID came.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So
good timing.
I would have been pinned into I don't know what I would have done.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Paying so much for space and nobody could even go there to work.
Yeah.
I
like to talk a little bit about the brand strategy portion, because, we also do brand design. We do some brand strategy. And for most people, I will say general public, when they think about brand, they think about, visual
The logo.
messaging or marketing, collateral, and that's the tail end.
Those are the assets.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how will you define or describe a brand strategy? What is that?
So I love this question because so many people, to your point, get this confused.
Yeah.
So I like to give examples of what I think is very poor. Well, no, let me go back to something a project that I'm very proud of that I did for, it was then Carolina's healthcare system. Health systems, they tend to want to run a lot of information about their halo services, meaning if we can cure cancer, if we can transplant hearts, we can certainly help you deliver a healthy baby,
sure.
Right? So they focus a lot on these, and it sort of makes sense. But here's the thing. How many people really want to hear about that? Cancer, heart disease, unless it's currently directing your family.
Yes.
So this is a needs-based service.
Right.
This isn't like when you're watching TV late at night and you had a light dinner and a fast food commercial comes on and you're like, I got to have a whatever.
Right.
And, that's more immediate advertising. But when you are need-based, it means people will think about you when they need you.
Right.
So while I was working with them, it just went year after year. They're like, no, halo. And then I said, I think we need to go primarily after the female audience because females do most of the decision making for their families.
Right.
Most of the time. It was certainly that case then. And so we changed that strategy for a while. That was very, very effective in targeting mostly women about, your family's well-being, preventative checks, annual visits, all of that. And most moms are very keen to that, but, it's always good to have a reminder. And then after that, we went into a situation where I thought, we need to cast an even broader net in terms of our audience. And this is all strategic, right? We're going to find this new audience in moms. And then I said, we need to find this new audience in preventative and wellness, which we all know is now the big thing.
Right.
And so we did campaigns where we were reaching out to schools, with lunch trays where the children were like, seeing, hey, does your family eat these 4 food groups a day? Just bringing awareness to the kids. I always like to say there's a lot of power in pulling the kids in. That's how McDonald's did so well. They ran, they had the Hamburglar or whatever, and all of a sudden the kids are like, we want McDonald's,
right.
So we went after that, but we also went after all of the adult segment.
Sure.
But it was a very creative time in terms of, I'll just keep saying, casting that broader net. Because when you start talking about wellness, daily living, you're talking to almost anybody, right? Yep. So more positive campaigning, more like, a guy's out enjoying his golf game. A mom's able to surf with her son. We picked very particular imagery because nothing speaks like imagery.
Right.
To put these positive messages out there rather than, cancer, heart disease, and it was extremely effective. It just, I think it, I don't remember the statistics, but it really took the organization from, I think it just, it cast a whole level of positivity because we associate healthcare so much with, people are in the hospital.
Right. And I think that's the value that you bring as an outsider because you're not in the industry. You're not in it every single day.
So true.
You have an objective perception of how they come across.
Yes.
And at some point you could also be the customer. Right? Yeah. So you're thinking about your perspective and you're saying, okay, I know you don't see this, but I see it in the more simplified way because it's simplifying the messaging and then understanding what kind of images, words, graphics are more receptive to that specific audience.
Yeah.
So is that something you think you learn in Europe, or how do you develop that ability?
Well, when I was in college, there weren't the tests like StrengthsFinder or things like this that I've done, in my latter years. But I would say one of my biggest abilities is to take a tremendous amount of research. And, you have to do the research. You can't just come to an entity and say, this is your next campaign.
Yes.
It has to be fundamentally supported by, industrial psychology, what the people want, the age ranges, the racial I don't want to get into too much detail, but, this is where the nerd in me really comes out. So I am very good at taking a tremendous amount of research, spending some time with it, and then developing 4 to 5 things where these are the 5 big ideas.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. It's very fascinating to me how, the Prius, for example, when the Prius was launched, that was launched for a very particular demographic. Very particular. Some would say it was launched for people who wanted good gas mileage, but it was mostly about being eco-friendly. And Subaru kind of does the same. I like to talk about cars a lot because they have a lot of money.
Sure.
And they build these models specifically to this 18-year-old or, but getting into the psychographics of people and why they're going to choose this product over another. And so that is what I would say has been my biggest thing in going in and then developing that into a strategy. Okay, go from here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
I think that ability, because I behave very similarly in my business, and I explain it in a way that I like to take complexity and simplify it.
Yes.
Because the world's very complex. There is so much information now with internet, social media, even more.
Oh, yeah.
You have all kinds of information and messages that we all get all the time, that it's important to have someone to say, okay, there's all this information. What's really valuable is 1, 2, and 3, and to execute is 1, 2, and 3. And there is a huge value in simplicity.
Oh, who was it? Da Vinci that said some great, I think it was Da Vinci said something like true beauty is in simplicity or something like that. Yeah. It's so true. I know that when I'll give you great examples of when people would say, we need a brochure, we need everything we could possibly say in it.
Yes.
Or, we need this ad campaign and I'm like, no, you need a paragraph.
Yes.
But we're paying all this money for all this ad. And like, no, people aren't going to read it.
Right.
One powerful 3 sentences, one great visual, one great headline, and your website.
Yes.
And I can't say this without mentioning, because, if you're an ad nerd like I am, whoever watched the Mad Men series back in the heyday of advertising, there was a lot of this I don't know how to discombobulation or overthinking of ideas. And then Volkswagen came out with an ad where there was nothing but white space and this little bug, the Volkswagen. And I don't know what it said, but it captured people. They were like, oh my goodness, what is that little thing on that whole, instead of chock full of all these messaging, and I call it visual noise. You walk into some stores and you're like, I don't even know what to look at. Whereas if it's simple and, highly understood, that just pulls people in so much more. Especially today, people have the attention span of I don't even know if we have the attention span of a goldfish. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I fall in love with branding years ago. Reading and listening to podcasts because it's such an amazing conversation. Because we are all, every single human, we're all getting, and there are statistics like 5,000 messages a day. Like,
Oh,
it's incredible.
yeah.
Like, we get impacted by branding all the time. So branding is ingrained in our lives, and we are making decisions based on brand messages that have been designed for us, and we don't realize it.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's so
but at the same time, if we
subconscious.
understand it, we can use it to our benefit, right? Because I always say branding is somebody's or someone's perception of you or your business.
Yeah, people have brands.
Yes,
People have brands,
but
for sure.
you don't know what that is.
Are you professional? Are you edgy? Yeah.
What others say about you, that's your brand.
I cannot agree with that more.
Yes.
I've not heard that before.
Yes, it's not what you said, it's what
Yeah.
others say.
Well, because it's the authentic thing that's coming out,
Right.
right? You can project something, but people are perceiving. And that's why when I've had brand clients before and they say, well, this is what we want to say about ourselves. And I'm like, but how do you behave?
Yes.
Unless they behave in that way, I'm like, this is not your story.
Right.
It has to be authentic, or you're just going to come off as completely false and self-serving.
100%. If you want to know someone's or business brand, you cannot ask them. You need to
have to
do a
spend time
survey
with them. Yeah.
with their clients, their
Oh.
people, and say, okay, tell me about them. Whatever they say, that's the brand. And we all have a brand. That's not the question. The question is, are we controlling our brand messaging to be aligned with our goals or not? Because we have it. Because everybody has an opinion
Right.
about everything. And that's what I think it's interesting that, brand strategy should be taught in schools. Like, kids should learn that. They're just basic concepts.
Yeah.
It's perception. And how do you use it? How do you understand it? Even when I think about brands, you can change your brand, you can make it better, you can work with your brand, and all the decisions that we make, just basic daily decisions of how we buy things. So we buy food, we buy things, we buy clothes, and then you go into luxury markets.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Whole other.
I can buy a shirt for $5, 10, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. They're clients for all of them.
Oh, of course.
And
I've seen them.
They all do the same. You put it on and it's a piece of clothes
It's
that
a
you
shirt.
burn. But I think the power of brand is that when you interact with a brand, it changes how you feel about yourself. So
I
when
haven't
I'm
thought about that before.
when
but I
I'm
like where you're
buying the
going.
luxury brand, how do I feel? Successful.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Right.
I feel part of a different group. So all good branding does is makes you feel good about yourself. And when you find a brand and you can afford it that makes you feel better about yourself, money is irrelevant. You buy whatever.
Yeah, I used to call it aspirational branding. And I've seen it a lot in the much younger people because when I was 20, I wasn't thinking about ever buying an $800 bag.
Yeah.
That was never going to happen. My priorities were just somewhere else, But I think what a lot of the luxury brands have done a good job of is this aspirational marketing, like budget, get here, and of course there's also a cultural shift going on here because the parents are allowing the children to buy more experience goods. I don't know how I always feel about that, but I kind of think you should earn it and enjoy it. And it's part of something you earn, not your parent loading this whatever onto you. But that's a big thing in luxury branding is the aspirational, you can't have it today, and especially with luxury brands who tend to mostly be a little bit more classic and they kind of have the same structure, this nice handbag or this nice pair of shoes. So it's very effective. And I know for me, I'm so much more into quality. I don't buy a lot of trends because Europe was where I learned a lot about this. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Invest in fewer high quality products that I have things that I've I have brands that I have an Armani scarf that I've had for 25 years. And it still is like one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You know, just to show. But I remember how much I longed for that scarf. And then, of course, I'm going to take care of it.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, I'm a big fan of luxury brands. You know, consumer brands, I'll give you an analogy of how consumer brands can get a little bit, even when I was very young, I had a vast instinct for this kind of thing because, you know, glued to television commercials, right? And every product that would come out is saying new and improved.
Yes.
And I would think, wait a minute. You're saying that the old product was inferior.
Yes.
And for years, companies did that. Procter & Gamble, they all did that. Like Tide, new and improved.
Right, yeah.
And I think they finally stopped doing that because it was so weird.
Sure.
You know, like, well, I've got this old Tide on my, you know, should I just throw it out? You know? So again, back to the, you know, how you reach people and how you make them think about your product. And, you know, I think back to what you were saying is when people buy something that they define as superior, even if that's their dish detergent, or they've made that investment and they know they've made a great investment.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if I went anywhere on a tangent with that.
No. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So, you know, it's been cool to know, you know, your journey, your experience, what have you done. So tell me about you today.
Oh my goodness. I have a few things going on.
Yeah.
I'm almost finished with a book.
Wow.
That I've been writing for
that's a big one.
4 years. I got interviewed and just asked some questions, and then it just gets, well, it was just a series of things that happened through my firm and everything and some exposure. And I got contacted to potentially write my own book. And I'm like, oh God, no. I mean, come on. I'm not that interesting.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Imposter syndrome. Am I that interesting?
Yeah.
And then I started to think about it a little bit more because I started to think, you know, I have some experiences that are so valuable. Had I not taken this risk, if I had not had this adversity, if I had always had everything just given to me, I wouldn't be the person I am.
Oh, yeah.
So I came up with this concept, and of course, you know me, I did a lot of research, so there's a lot of research in it. But the idea is, I can tell you about it a little bit because now I'm close to finishing it. But the concept is about the oyster. And an oyster, not all oysters make pearls, but oysters only make pearls when they're in the sea for a certain amount of time. They get bounced around. They're in bad storms, except because pearls take a long time to develop.
Yes.
So it's irritants that get into the oyster shell that makes the oyster develop the pearl. And it can be sand or it can be other not so great things that go into the oyster, and it's trying to get them out. And in doing so, it's creating a pearl. So my book basically rests on the premise that if you go through your life and you're never told, like, I'll give you a good example. Children nowadays are saying, Mom, Dad, don't tell me that I disappoint you. You shouldn't tell me that I disappoint you. Come on. If somebody in my family said, you've disappointed me, that was like,
yes.
You know? So I studied about Japan.
Yeah.
Because families in Japan, if you have something to disappoint the family, you've shamed the entire family.
Right.
I mean, this is very serious stuff. And they start treating children in Japan around 12 as adults. And I think that that's something about their whole maturity level and things that go on in Japan. But, you know, the premise is we're all going to have obstacles. But what I'm finding a lot is that a lot of young people do not have real obstacles until they're like in their 20s.
Yeah.
Like this helicopter parenting,
Sure.
Doting on these children. Oh, you get whatever you want. You know, everything you wanted for Christmas is under the tree. And, you know, there's a segment of young people that, you know them. I mean, they're just this. They don't like to engage in conversation. They And I don't know what's really going on here, but my assessment would be a lack of maturity.
Yeah.
Because it's things that happen to you and how you respond to those. So I've gotten some great examples in my book. If you want to hear one, I'll tell you a really great example.
Sure.
So my father unfortunately bankrupted prior to my going to college. And that was huge for me because college was everything for me. And it wasn't him, it was the markets. He had several businesses, but alas, no money. So I had to take a gap year. And I went to Hilton Head Island and I waited tables and I figured out, wow, you can make a lot of money doing that. And then when I was able to start school, I still had to maintain jobs, because I couldn't take out everything in loans. So I had all of these various jobs. It was kind of funny, actually. And I had an internship with Sotheby's, unpaid. And my boss was a very well-influenced woman. She knew everybody in DC. So I would come to her for advice and things like that. And so I get to this point, I'm like, Sally, I still can't make my rent. Like, I need a job literally while I'm sleeping. And she says, Mel, let me think on that. Okay, I got to take a sip of wine. This is such a great story.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I only remembered it recently. That's what's so crazy. So she said, okay, I know someone who needs a full-time dog sitter. And we'll just say that they were in politics and they traveled a lot. I lived in a very elite residence where I lived in a dump. And she's like, okay, you are being paid to like sleep with their dogs and live in their residence and walk them twice a day.
Yes.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love dogs.
Yes.
I'll take that up.
Wow.
So I loved that job. So long story short, when I got to the point where I was almost out of college and everything like that, and I was more prepared for the world than I was when I entered for sure DC, she calls me and invites me to a dinner party. And I love dinner parties. It's just a few people around a table. You can have some real conversation, especially in homes. So, and I loved her home. So I said, of course, she said, I'm just going to tell you there's a guest of honor. I can't say who, but she's going to be there. So, of course, I'm like, who is this? Because in DC, it could be anyone.
Oh, sure.
Anyone, especially with her. So, I, of course, take a nice hostess gift and everything like that. And I arrive and I walk in and sitting in the living room is Sandra Day O'Connor.
What?
The Supreme Court Justice. And I'm like, I'm in my 20s, early 20s. What am I going to say to her? How am I going to conduct myself? But, I've always felt like, you just have to be natural around people and make them feel.
Yeah, be who you are.
And what was interesting about that evening is that she was the guest of honor, but she did not want the attention of the evening. She just wanted us to talk about what we would talk about. And I found that to be kind of a lesson of my life. No matter how successful you are, no matter what you've achieved, just being humble and being able to be a person around your friends is what creates happiness.
Yeah.
If you're always on this pedestal, if you're always trying to entertain someone, I won't mention anyone in particular in politics right now, but you lack what's happening with your connection to normal people.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'll give you an example of that. Had I not been so broke and needed a job while I was sleeping, which was the grit part of my story, talk about having a pearl.
Yes.
Meaning Sandra Day O'Connor.
Right.
So the book kind of laces in these experiences that were not pleasant, but they had these incredible outcomes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When is that book coming out?
I told the publisher I would have it by the end of this month.
Wow. That's like 2 weeks.
I know. It'll be finished this summer.
Nice.
Yeah. The thing about writing a book is it's very, oh my goodness. I kept saying to myself, is this really interesting? Is anyone really going to want to know this?
Right.
And the last thing I wanted was to come off as like braggadocious or, I did this, I did that. So I hired an external editor to go through and she's like, Mom, You're not bragging. You're just talking about incredible experiences,
and it's real.
and you're telling young people if they follow that, the very same thing might happen to them. So who knows? I mean, it would be one of my dreams to be a New York Times bestseller author, because when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a novelist.
Sure.
But, I'm not going to be disappointed if I just sell some to my family.
Yeah. I'll buy one.
Yeah. Friends and family discount. $12.99, marked down from $39.99. It's yours.
Yes. Cool. All right. My last question for you is, do you have a question for me?
Oh gosh, for Jack Osa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be so hard. I mean, surely everybody who knows you knows that you were a lead architect at Gensler.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, you were 32?
Yep.
30?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for anybody who doesn't know Gensler, look it up. This is a global wow. And you led the Duke Endowment Project here in Charlotte, which is one of our most beautiful buildings, period. When I met you, I was just blown away by your success story, how young you were, and I mean, I don't know that there's a big difference in our age, but I don't think of people in their age all the time. I just think, wow, he's a young architect who's leading design at Gensler. You normally think of like a 75-year-old architect leading the way at Gensler,
Yeah.
And then the fact that you were an immigrant, you're Colombian, and you've achieved all of this success and probably had to break through so many barriers to get there. I would ask you what you most enjoy about your work.
Yeah.
But I feel like since the time I've known you, that would vacillate between branding, architecture, understanding, knowing more about people, like in these podcasts. That's a hard question, boy. I know you're also methodical. Mm-hmm. You get up very early. You have a lot of routine. I read your manifesto.
Yes.
What age were you when you wrote that manifesto?
I don't know. That was probably 2012.
Crazy. Who writes a manifesto? You did.
I probably need to read it. I forgot about that.
Oh
my gosh.
Amazing.
Yes.
I think I was one of the few people you gave it to.
Yes.
Which I was so flattered by that.
Wow.
Gosh, I mean, I'm not going to ask you something like, what do you care about the most in the world? Because that's going to be your family, right? A lot of people focus on that too much. Of course, we love our families, but the passions that drive you, gosh. Okay, I have a word for you. Okay. This is going to be hard.
Okay.
I'm looking at some words behind you here because if there's one word that you would most likely want people to identify with you.
Yes.
What would that be?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'm going to say anything. I will say efficiency. And
I like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it may come across like too process oriented or utilitarian or but I use the word efficiency a lot. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I love efficiency, and to me that means being responsible with your resources. Mm-hmm. I hate waste of time.
Yeah. Waste of time, procrastination.
Yes, and what's interesting is that my idea of what matters, because when I say efficiency, it's like, okay, focus on what matters, but what matters changes as I get older.
Sure.
Right. So if before efficiency was, I need to create as much work as I can during the day, and my output needs to be amazing. Maybe today my efficiency is I need to spend as much time with my kids as I can.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And therefore,
it should vary.
I need to be efficient when I'm doing work. So I do the work that I need to do in the less amount of time with the biggest impact, so I can go spend more time doing, what I want with my kids. So, I know that word should be somewhere in there. Yeah, efficiency.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was recently having a discussion with my children. I have 3 children.
Me too.
One, I would say, is like me, sense of urgency. Something comes up and he's like, okay, I've got to take care of that. And I've been like that my whole life. I do not.
Yep, that's the way I am.
Or it's going to go, if I can't accomplish it, it's going to go on a list at that very given time. So recently I was in a situation where, I have kids in college and it's all like about timelines and deadlines and everything like that. And I get this like, oh, we have time. I'm like, no, we don't. No, we don't. Yeah. You do not have any time because you've waited and procrastinated. And now you're looking to me. And so they're like, okay, can I come over at 3 a.m. and let's get this done?
Yes.
But I've actually had some comments like, why do you have to jump on things at the very minute I mention it?
Yes.
But to your point, it's incredible when you respond like that.
Yes.
It's like, got that off my back.
Yep.
It's just and it's, you can't do everything right away, but, it's pretty incredible what you can do right away when asked.
Yeah. I always like to
prompted.
say, one of the other words I use a lot or phrases is get the ball rolling. Like, we don't need to solve the whole project right now, but let's get the ball rolling. If the ball is rolling, you adjust it, you move it, but there is something. Make the call, send the email, submit the application, just take the step.
Right.
And I would get very anxious when, tomorrow I'm waiting on this. And there's no reason to wait. Let's just take the action. Just get it moving, make things happen.
Yeah, I think that this is a very big thing of successful people. I mean, I just have not met a lot of people who kind of wait for things to come to them. It's about seizing all the opportunities. And it's not just about seizing them, it's about making them.
Yes.
It's not like they're just going to come to you. I'm interested in different personalities a lot and everything, but I think we gravitate to people who we feel are a little bit like us, especially in the work setting, right? I know if I ask you to do something, boom. I would hope that if you ask me to do something, boom, and the same of our colleagues. So, Yeah.
A while ago, I heard something that is stuck in my mind, which is there are 3 kinds of people in the world. People who make things happen. People who watch others make things happen.
Okay.
And people who wonder what happened.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And you're
going to have to text me that later.
Yes, and you just have to decide what kind of person you are because that's the way it is. So many people like, how did you do that? Well, you're wondering, wonder what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've done things and I didn't know what I was doing, but I just did it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Melanie, we got 1 hour in.
Good.
Which is awesome.
It was so enjoyable.
Thank you for coming here.
Anytime.
I'm very proud of you. I'm excited about what you have going on, and I appreciate your friendship and keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to continue watching your success. Cheers.
And for me too. To a great wine.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.